Okay, well, welcome back to another Reeducation Experience podcast. I have to say, honestly, as a listener and as someone who's doing this, I love doing this more and more and more as I go. It's not a burden. It's like a love. It's a passion. And why is this? Well, the more I do this, the more well, I get selfishly the ability to ask people that I trust and respect about things that I wish I knew from them. And this platform has given me that ability. But of course, I have to say, I'm truly blessed that being in this position to do this, I can extract this constant real world wisdom and share it out to you guys who may not just have that same access or just, of course, are living your lives and doing your thing. So it's this combination that just fuels me to do this show, to dig harder and bring as much value as I can to you. So today I get the honor to bring on another, another two-time guest. And when we did this for the first time, it was on episode 34. We laid out that this would be a two-part series. It just took us a little while to do this. And I know this is going to bring so much value. As times pass and watching the changes that our current guest has gone through, it gets me even more excited to bring him back on because, again, I know he's more fueled than ever about what he's doing, which is pretty amazing to say after all these years. So today I'm going to be bringing on super coach Bill Pipes. Bill was, for those that maybe missed this or are new to my world or the show, he was my personal mentor. He was my personal coach for 4 years straight, which is a long time for a lot of coaching relationships during my biggest growth years in my real estate career. All the major shifts happened when I was with Bill. I know that my success, again, was in massive part to our time together, my friend, and the partnership that I felt as coach and student. So beyond that, though, I'm not that important. Bill's Pipes has been a leading coach back in the day at Keller Williams in their MAPS program, which is
even before that, Mike Ferry, dude.
Before that in the Mike Ferry world.
For like a decade with Mike Ferry, dude. So
and Keller Williams, yes, is known in the industry for all those around it, just how powerful their coaching program was and was instrumental there. Then into the Tom Ferry organization. He did that, and it was the coach of coaches within that world and led and drove that. He did then over a small little stint. They did a big event with you might have heard of Success. Well, Success Coaching, they did a big event, took part in that, and also played a large role with Cheplack Live Coaching for a little bit, which is a coach to the mega teams out there. If you follow John Cheplack in his world, now he's moved on to probably where he's always should have been, doing this fully on his own. And it's just coachpipes.com, right? Is that right?
Yeah, coachpipes.com. Yes.
All right.
So
the goal and him and I talked offline a little bit about this goal, this recent journey. He's figured out how to get people over that $1 million mark, and he just knows he can make real estate millionaires, which is awesome to see that he's kind of built that formula. He's got the experience behind him, and he's driving people to that world. So himself, like back in the day, he ran successful real estate teams. He did it in multiple markets. He did it in traditional. He did it with also online systems and solutions. And now, probably tens of thousands of coaching calls later, his real world experience coupled with that time is just a wild ride of information. So with that too, if you went to his Instagram and you went down his path, you'll see recently he's kind of livened up the NLP training world again. It's something that's always been near and dear to his heart. And I'm going to ask him what that is and share a little bit about that as well. But he runs workshops. Thousands have attended these across North America. I've even sent my own team down to some of these over time.
Which has been awesome having them there, man.
It's just a skill that's rarely taught. So Bill, my friend, my mentor, my coach, welcome to the show again.
I'm glad you let it off with my friend, because it's such a wonderful, chills on my arms, such a wonderful thing when a client becomes a friend, and then that friend becomes family. And I look at you and Becky and the kids and everyone like as family, man. And it's to watch the growth that's happened from the small team, right, to the bigger Redline, to the big, and what you're doing to give back. I just honor you, man, and just inspired all the time. So thank you for having me back, bro.
Awesome, man. Absolutely. Now I probably missed, okay, father to two, right? loving spouse, and scaler of mountains.
Scaler of mountains, yes. Attempted scaler of mountains. I got my ass handed to me in Ecuador this last go around. Like myself and my buddy Chris Snar and Dan Beer, like a bunch of us, like went up there. And it's funny because I thought like Ecuador, we were supposed to go to Russia, right? Was what was the game, because we were on this hunt for the 7 summits, right? Because one of the things that I think is really important for any trainer is, if you're asking people to take risks, if you're asking people to push the envelope, then you need to continue to do that. And I realized a long time ago that I wasn't, and I took on, like, I climbed Kilimanjaro, climbed Aconcagua, 2 of the big summits that are on the 7. And then we're supposed to go to Russia. And then COVID happened, visa challenges, and then the war took place. And so we went to Ecuador. And honestly, it's one of those things where we thought this could be an easy climb. And oh boy, man, like I learned something. Everything's simple, nothing's easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
The climb simple, but it wasn't easy. So yeah, but good to be back, man.
I always like to ask, like, in the last year, a lot of change. When you and I were chatting last time, if you flip back to episode 34, for anybody listening wants to pick up kind of where we started, the shift was just starting to happen.
Yeah.
Right. We were just going through this. And of course, a lot about that throughout your years and decades into this coaching. But personally, as of note, you've also had some significant changes, again, health-wise, and you've made some decisions. Can you unpack a little bit about the year for people?
For sure. It's been an exciting year. I've been really fortunate, I would say, to be aligned and connected with great economists and forward-thinking industry leaders and predictors, in terms of the real estate landscape. And so, back in, and I started talking, and not that I'm like some oracle and looking at a crystal ball, but everything was pointing, and all the people that I trust, who I turn to economically, were coming to me saying, dude, this shift is happening. And that was January. And that was, keep in mind, January, February, everything was super strong. Like, I mean, we thought this was going to go on forever, but they're like, hey, it's coming, it's changing. We can't keep up with this. And then obviously we saw, April, the adjustment, and May, it really hit. And then it really came around. I think it was, I was leading a seminar in Atlanta, and it was in October. And I remember day number 1, Langille, man, I'm speaking, and I've never felt such a permeating sense of fear in a room than what I felt on day number 1 inside that room. And come to find out, October, November were the bottom of the market. That, like, when you look back and you point indicatively to where was the bottom of the market, what NAR down here in the States, and all economists are pointing to is saying, hey, it was end of October, beginning of November was the bottom, right? And so, fortunately, I was able to be able to actually make some moves with the coaching clients that I have, be able to cut expenses intelligently, be able to scale up in terms of their outbound reaches, change their skills because it's a different dialogue, and get them back into a market where you had to work. And so, a lot of people, I was super fortunate to be able to actually support a lot of people in navigating those waters and be able to come out this next year and be like on fire ahead of last year even. So
what do you think was some of those? I love that, just that you mentioned right off the bat, like that was a time for agents to cut expenses.
Yeah.
How does one decide, how do you help them do that? Because again, a lot of the time when your things are going so well, we just spend money,
Oh, man.
like where do you point them to do that, so you don't get rid of something that's a myth that you're like, I shouldn't have probably got rid of that? How do you do that?
Yeah. So there's 3 ways that I look at it. Okay. Number 1 is I go with the easy, low hanging fruit, which is I don't know about you, but I did this. Like, at that time I went, where are all the shit that I'm spending money on that I don't even know I'm spending money, the subscriptions and all this other stuff that I'm not using and not aware of? I personally cut close to $2,000 worth of stuff on a monthly basis that I wasn't even aware that I was spending. Right. And so I have them go there, and we do what's called I get them onto what's called a financial Friday for the larger teams. And what a financial Friday is where every Friday they sit down with whoever it is, their director of operations, or you can do this if you're an individual agent yourself, and you just go, where was all my money going this week? right? Not for the month, but this week. Was it necessary? Is this something I wasn't aware of? And you just go through your credit card statements, your balance sheet, and you just go, what am I not using that I didn't even know I had? And like I said, for myself, for most teams, it's a
Yeah.
couple $1,000s that they don't even recognize, right? And that's number one. Then, so that Financial Friday is really effective with that, to just have that awareness. Because one of the tenets that I really live my life around, and I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, is the first stage to transformation is awareness. If you're not aware, you cannot transform. So I have to get people really aware of where the money's going. Number two, then, is I always look at on lead sources, right? Lead sources that I can definitively point at and say, I'm spending money on this, like my pay-per-click, my realtor.com, my Zillow, my whatever, all the other type of lead sources that there are. And then we dig into what's our CPC, cost per closing, and what's our ROI, return on investment. And a lot of people, like I remember Ferry, the younger Ferry, Tom, talking like, hey, we want to shoot for a 6x ROI. Do you remember that? Remember that conversation with 6x? Well, I think that's a little unrealistic. You know what I mean? And for most people, I'm like, okay, are we getting a 3x on this? Are we spending $1 getting 3? Are we spending $1 getting 2? And depending upon the lead source, it's either a 2x or a 3x ROI, we keep it. If not, what happens is we start to dig into it and say, is this lead source that we're paying for, is the challenge the source, or is the challenge our conversion and system that's around it? Can we adjust the system and the conversion around that? Or is it the source itself that is going to be ineffective for us? And then we start to actually cut or scale back the lead sources based upon the return on investment and our cost per closing at that point as well too, right?
Yeah.
And then the last piece, which is the one that we go to last, is human capital, right? Who do we have on the team at this point that either isn't performing, that's on payroll, isn't performing, is no longer necessary, or the role is no longer necessary, right? And can we consolidate and begin to cut? So it's never that third piece. Like 1 and 2 are like the easier non-emotion pieces. The third piece is the tough one. You know what I mean? Because you're having to, and it's the last one you go to once you've done those first 2, man. So that's how we navigated that.
Those, I mean, tons of nuggets. I already got half page of notes. And again, if anybody's listening to these podcasts, the way I suggest they do is they do it in note-taking format, right? You can pause this stuff, right? You can take notes, and I hope people do, right? That idea of cost per closing is a great one for people to really wrap their heads around. And I also love this, when you're doing this, you'll realize real quickly that, you just got fat, right? You just got fat with extra stuff. And like, if only they dialed up on, say, those best 2 to 3x lead sources rather than added the 5th and the 6th, they probably would already be ahead of where they were currently at, even because, beyond the good times that the market rose them on, right?
Yeah.
So
well, what's interesting is a really good market hides the mistakes, right? And but I'll tell you, like there were certain teams that we actually put more money into marketing, believe it or not, because we were able to look at and I won't mention who it is, but it's a Canadian team over out of GTA, and we were able to cut like billboards. And we ran some tests. Like this gentleman he had a giant billboard right next to this restaurant. He went into the restaurant, he and his wife, and they sat down and they say, do you guys recognize us? And they're like, no, we don't. And these are people that worked there. They've been driving in every single day past the billboard. And so we were able to cut like 18 billboards and bus benches. And we're able to reallocate that because we looked at our CPC, our cost per closing, right? And we said, dang, man, we've got this one source that has a really great low margin CPC, great ROI. Let's take this X amount, or a portion of this X amount that we're spending on these billboards, which was exorbitant, and let's put it over into this source that we know can scale. And we're not going to hit what's called saturation, because some lead sources, you hit a saturation point where the more you do, it becomes a law of diminishing returns. But we did the math and we went, great. And we saw the business pick up because we reallocated a portion of what was being spent that we had cut, right? So in many cases, when a market shifts, it isn't it isn't always a time, because you're never gonna massively succeed by just cutting, right? And what you want to do is look at where you can take some of those funds that you cut, reallocate it, push into marketing, brand awareness, and lead flow when everyone else is pulling back. If you do it intelligently and non-emotionally and not shiny penny wise, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where everyone's like, there's the new one and there's the new one, right? So you can really use a shift in a market, as many of my teams did, to be able to gain awareness, gain eyes, gain market share, gain lead flow. So,
And of course, that's probably coached from a place of where there's cash flow, right? Where you're cash flowing and you can drive that properly forward. And like, so what is the thing that most people just pulled away from, that you're strategically your groups, or the smart groups that were positive cash flowing, could then go pounce on? Anything that kind of comes to mind where people just pulled off because they just pulled off, and they were spending money where they probably shouldn't have? Any idea there?
So I'm gonna go a different route on this. Here's
Sure.
what I noticed. So I'm gonna answer the question this way. What was it that in addition to the marketing, the branding, because you know me, and those of you that don't, my basis for business modeling is that the best businesses are prospecting based, and they're enhanced with marketing. I call it prospecting based, marketing enhanced business model. Where you lead with disciplined standards of lead gen and lead follow-up, but you enhance it with marketing to be able to either drive leads or to be able to create awareness, so that when you do call or people do see you or you do talk to them, they go, hey, we trust you. We see your stuff everywhere. We have awareness of you. What happened in 2021, I think we talked about this on episode 34, right? So was we all got away from prospecting is what happened, right? Because the market did a majority of the heavy lifting. The awareness was there. The FOMO was there, of fear of missing out on this great market. And then when that market shifted in April and May, and then continued to through August, and obviously in October and November, what I said to every single one of my teams and individual agents that I coach is, we got to go back to fundamentals that we forgot. And every single team that they're probably watching this, they heard me say time and time again, develop a culture that prospects, develop a culture of prospecting, develop a culture of prospecting. And when we did that, we lost some people on the team, right? Because there were certain people that were never going to be able to actually switch over. So we could make the shifts and the changes in the marketing, but if you don't develop that culture of prospecting, then it doesn't matter how much you spend on marketing, because you don't have a team, or you yourself won't have that discipline or that standard of follow-up. So yeah,
makes so much sense. And yeah, I mean, being a part of your coaching and experiencing that, it's been such a theme for forever, even as you said, as things go well.
Yeah.
That brings me into a great question. So as you know, the headlines say one thing, us as agents are looking deeper, and there's actually a lot of positive news popping up everywhere that people can use. And unless you're talking to people, right, like they're not hearing it properly. They're hearing the of course, likely incorrect headline driver, the clickbaits. How this probably leads really well right into your NLP world, around the whole idea of like, what is it and how do we use it to our advantage? Can you give us a little take on this from a
Sure. So let me lay a foundational piece that I think is critical, right? For people to just truly understand the approach that I've seen that works over, I think the exact number now, DL, is over 16,000 coaching sessions.
Oh
right?
my goodness.
It's 55, almost 60,000 hours of coaching. And you know what? I was talking to someone that we were talking about earlier off camera. And this person was like, man, how do you stay excited after all that? I'm like, dude, I fucking love this, man. Like I enjoy being able, more than anything else, to be able to take someone who has never earned $1 million and get them over that $1 million mark, to have the conversation with them the day after where they go, I broke $1 million. I'm like, cool. You got in your car. Was there a ticker tape parade? They're like, no. I'm like, exactly. You need to go back to work. Right. So like, it's the same old day. Right. But it's exciting to have people do that. And the basis of the selling style, and this was not, I hadn't codified this, bro, on our last call, but I really have over the course of this last year. I believe the consumer has evolved, that everyone really needs to understand this. The consumer has evolved. They have so much more access to data and information, most of which is tainted, most of which is not accurate, right? And so our job as salespeople, whereas before it was like, use this script, hard close, do this, like here's this angular. When I say angular, I mean, I'm going to get them in a corner and they're not going to be able to make any other choice. No. Right. And then I got them. Right. That's not what I believe in. And it's funny because I came from Mike Ferry, and that's very much, an appropriate model of selling for the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s that the consumer has evolved out of.
Yeah.
I believe in, everyone listen carefully, in what's called education-based, data-driven selling. Education-based, well, what is that? Education-based, data-driven selling is that I prospect to be able to find people who are motivated. My job then is to present data, facts, information, market specific, both national information and more localized, hyper local information, so that that motivated individual, based upon their level of motivation, can make intelligent decisions. Right. So that like my job, every call as a salesperson is not to sell someone, it's to educate them on what's happening in the market. And if they're motivated enough, they'll listen. And if I present it effectively. Okay. So, and it just works now, right? Like that is a model of selling that we're finding works extremely well, because no one likes to be sold. But if I come to a lead follow-up call and I go, hey, Darren, I'm just giving you a call back, just like I said I would, right? There's a key line right there, because it lets them know I do the shit that I say I'm going to do in the time I'm going to do it. Means integrity. I just want to confirm, are your plans still to move over to Kelowna because you guys are retiring and, you guys have that window of opportunity? Is that still your time frame in the next 90 days? And is that still your plans? Yeah, Bill, it is. Hey, Darren, I was thinking about you because, right, I'm just curious, what have you heard or believe is happening in the local market today? I always lead with that question, right? What do you know or believe is happening in the local market here today? And I do that because I want to know what they are thinking. I want to know what they're believing. I want to know what I call their BS, right? And their BS is not what you would think it was. Their BS is their belief system. See, and it's really interesting. In NLP is called neuro, which is of the nervous system or the mind, linguistic, which means spoken, and programming, which is really interesting because there's a way to communicate with people like a computer program, creates a specific output. Well, if you speak in a certain manner, right, then you can create an output for your clients to be able to move forward comfortably. Well, part of NLP is understanding the criteria and the belief system that people actually have, so that you can meet them where they are to educate them and move them forward. Right. So in every follow-up call, I'm having this conversation of, like, what have you seen has happened? If I haven't talked to them in 3 weeks, any change in your perception of what you think is going on in the market in the last 3 weeks? I talked to them in 2 more weeks. Hey, anything else come up for you? And on every single one of these calls, then I'm saying to them, hey, let me share with you the reality of what's happened in the last 2 weeks, the changes that we've seen, right? Here's where inventory was. Here's where it's moved to in the last 30 days. Here's the total number of homes that have come to the market. There's 1,000 homes that came to the market in the last 30 days. There's 1,100 sales. Do you see that with inventory? Inventory is beginning to get constricted. And I can just create enough with the data, logical information for them to look at this DL and go, I think waiting is better, but if I wait, there's going to be less for me to choose from, and the interest rates may come down, but there's more competition. While I should probably do something right now,
Right.
if I present that appropriately. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. And I mean, I feel today as agents that are educating ourselves and staying plugged into the marketplace, we've never had more real good ammo to have real conversations with. Like, it's endless right now. Dude. And you set up a Google alert to your local market and you will get hit with headline after headline that you could just go bring value to. You look at your own data against the headline, it creates a whole nother narrative for which we can go and paint and pull. But again, if you're not, like you mentioned, prospecting based, market enhanced, and you're all marketing, you're just simply not talking to enough people, which means you're likely not confident enough in the message and the value you bring.
Yeah.
Right. Is that
and
fair?
Here's the thing. If you can read and if you can listen, it is absolutely, you have, if you have ears and eyes, right?
Right.
And you have a second grade education, it is absolutely irresponsible for you not to be spending 15 minutes diving into the local and national market news and trends from respected sources like Housing Wire or Keeping Current Matters or realtor.com, or and the list goes on, Inman, mortgage bankers news. I'm giving all down here in the States. I know that up in Canada, there's other ones as well too. But listen, if you're not educating yourself, right? I think there's more buyers and sellers that are spending more time educating themselves on the market than probably 90% of the agent population that's out there. And for me, that is a social and economic and also fiscal responsibility that we have to be able to educate ourselves so we can guide intelligently our clients so that they don't make stupid mistakes. So
Yeah. I mean, and we're all told the world about, the whole back to the marketing, back to social media, back to everything.
yeah,
Well, gosh, if you're spending those 15 minutes, you've got like multiple outlets to get it out there. Yes, one-to-one with the people you're following up with and connecting with in your database, but then one-to-many in like
videos, shoot a video
everywhere, right? It's just, so I always tell agents, like, the time is never wasted unless you just never use that info for anything. You just sit secret agent style behind the desk and hope when the phone rings. But if you take action, you're like, oh my gosh, I can use this in 40 different ways, like Gary Vee would say today, right?
Totally. And you get excited, like knowledge equals confidence. That's one of the key things. Knowledge equals confidence, ignorance equals fear. I gotta tell you, bro, on my coaching calls, on my webinars that I lead, at the seminars that I lead, I'm so excited because I get to share like information for people where they can frame, and I watch the light bulbs go off and they're like, I know how to have that conversation with this buyer now about, yes, interest rates are going to go down and that plays in your favor. But as interest rates go down, more buyers come to the market, which means that plays not in my favor. There's more competition. And also 80% of here in the States, all homeowners are at 4% or lower interest rates, right? These are all data that I have, which means that there's going to be less inventory. I can now frame that story. I call it control the narrative. I can now control the narrative for that client, that consumer, so that here's my belief: a motivated and educated consumer will always make more intelligent decisions. A motivated and educated consumer, but they've got to be motivated, willing to take action, willing to actually hear what I'm telling them, and they've got to be educated. That's my job. And I've got to do it. This is key, DL, for all of you guys. And I was just on a call with Corinne Nguyen, right? I think you know Corinne down in Phoenix, Arizona. She's a great team. And Corinne and I were talking, and I was speaking to her team of about 45, 50 agents that I coach. And they said, well, I've had this conversation with buyers and they haven't moved forward. I said, how many times do you have the conversation? Because what Johns Hopkins University has established, Johns Hopkins, which is a great Ivy League educated, research university down here in the States, has established is human beings have to hear something 6 to 7 times before it actually begins to change their reference point. So if you have the conversation one time, the buyer hears it. You're at a second time, you can adopt it maybe a little bit. By 4th, 5th, or 6th, they should, if they're motivated, be like engaging, like, I got it now at this point. That's why every follow-up call, and I know we're going super tactical today, which I love because we didn't do that. Yeah, we didn't do that on last year. Every follow-up call, if you're not bringing value, information, educating them, why are you making the call? Because all that you're going to do is, you still plan on selling? Can we get together? You still want to buy? Okay, great. That's bullshit, man. Like, you have a responsibility to educate them on every call, bring them data. So,
well, I mean, and you with your scripting that you just kind of rolled off the top of your tongue, made it really easy when it's like, well, is there anything that's you've seen that has changed your perception? You could ask that every single time and just, like you said, let them speak. And then you find out their BS, then you re-educate. And then this is a cycle that can just be rolled over and over again. As long as you're not scared to just initiate, right?
As long as you're continuing to educate yourself and you have something new to bring to them. That's why when I say control the narrative, right? I think the first step is you got to control the narrative with yourself. yourself. And the
Right.
only way you, meaning you as a salesperson, as a business professional, as a real estate agent, the only way you do that is through the education process of 15 minutes a day. Right. And I do this while I'm on the treadmill. I do it when I've got a little break, but for 15 minutes every single day, I'm digging, man, and that just helps. What it does is it helps me feel confident to be able to direct my clients and for them to direct their buyers and sellers to be able to actually make the right choices. And when you have that confidence, people feel certainty, and that certainty creates that affinity to work together,
Right.
that influence, if you will. So, yeah.
So with that, and if you educated and you're confident, you're taking the knowledge forward, you're sharing that, is that where some of the strategies within how you speak in NLP start to add fuel to that fire? Is that right?
100%. So here's the process. Ready? Like education-based, data-driven selling. Educate yourself first so that you can control the narrative with you, right? Come up with dialogues, which I've created. We create together with my coaching clients, create dialogues that work to be able to actually frame that inside. In fact, if you go to the website coachpipes.com, you're going to see there's an ultimate offer acceptance strategy that's inside of there. And that you can just click on it and you get it for free. And that is like an education-based script, right? So then you get that script. And then you get it, look at it and go, okay, cool. I've got the data. Well, it's one thing to look at that and to have the data. It's another thing. Step number 3 is you've got to practice that shit over and over again to be able to intelligently deliver it. Because if I show up with you, DL, and I just go, okay, let me tell you about what's going on here. So their inventory is up, 4% and sales are down 20%. And last year, if I start verbally vomiting just all this data, it has no influence.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can then take that script and go, Darren, do you know what inventory levels are? And you go, well, I think so. Inventory levels are a real estate term that we use to keep track of how many homes are actually for sale. You can see right now, and I take out the sheet and I point at it where I have the data. If I'm meeting them in person, where are we right now on inventory levels? Well, there's 1,100 homes for sale. You're absolutely correct, Darren. And where were we 90 days ago? Oh, wow. Look at that. There were 1,400 homes for sale. Yep, that's right. So what does that tell us? Well, there's fewer homes for sale now. The market is trending. And I do that, right? Then I'm engaging them. They're not checking out. But there's some key things. So that from an NLP standpoint, you really have to work on, right? You've got to speak with authority. Right. You have to come at this. And there's like from a very young age, we have all been conditioned to listen to people who are in authority position from our parents and from school and from church or whatever. Like we tell our kids, when you talk to Riker and Riker needs to go to his room, right? Or I talk to Liam and I say, whatever it is I'm saying to him about his grades, like we were talking about, I'm not like, oh, sweetheart, it's going to be okay. I'm like, dude, get your grades up. Riker, go to your room. We're conditioned to listen to people who are in authority. So you got to speak in an authoritative position. And how you do that is A, through tone going down, but B, through knowing your stuff inside and out as well too. So
yeah, I mean, how does somebody, if that's of interest, where they're thinking, you know what, I'm having these conversations, I get what Bill and Darren are saying, or I'm moving the needle, I'm driving this forward, I'm having these conversations, but they're trying to like add that little extra oomph and control because they feel like they're comfortable at the door, they're comfortable on the phone, but they want to upgrade that and take a little more control NLP style. I mean, how do they learn more about that? Do you have some key resources
So, I mean, I run a course 2 times a year. That's, and I don't think the site's even up because we just closed it out.
Sure.
But I run a course 2 times a year. That's an intensive. I mean, it's intense where you're learning 9 different language patterns, 4 different rapport building themes. And so, as that comes around, just if they're watching me online or whatever, I always bring it up. There's a couple of books. I'm looking back behind here that I really like. One is called Instant Rapport by Michael Brooks. It's a great primer. It's a basic fundamental book. Instant Rapport by Michael Brooks. The Power of Charm, which is by Brian Tracy and Ron Arden, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, which is good. But the one that's the daddy, man, that's just is good. And I can't see it here. It's called Unlimited Selling Power by Donald J. Moyne, Moene. Don't confuse it with Tony Robbins' unlimited power. That's not it. It's
Right.
unlimited selling power. And that is a like insane, like tome of like how you use NLP in sales. Cause a lot of the NLP that you'll study is going to be therapeutic, made by Richard Bandler and John Grinder, because it was originally a therapeutic tool to be able to help people get over phobias. So Moyne has
right.
done a really good job of really taking that and turning it into a sales portion.
I mean, at the end of the day, if people, maybe I'll summarize this for a second. See, tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
If you train in the NLP patterns, you have the ability to further drive the outcome that you're trying to get.
Yep.
And it's this ability for us as sales agents who we're in the business of persuasion, but again,
Always.
not in an unauthentic and not in a dark way, but in the way that we know will serve best our clients and the people to work with us. If we, again, believe we're the best for them, which has to be part of it, you're doing them a favor if they're working with us more, right? So your job is to see the best return on your time, and the NLP strategies can further help you drive towards that. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say. In fact, I want to give some people some hacks right now. Can I give some hacks?
Yeah.
Right. I was thinking I've never done this before, so I'm sort of stoked to actually do this. I'm going to give you a couple things that you can do right now. One of them is called an adverb presupposition. An adverb presupposition. I can use words to create meaning for the rest of the sentence. If I say, naturally, Darren, right? You're beginning to get excited about us work together. Well, that presupposition of naturally presupposes it's natural for you to feel that. I say, obviously, you can see that this market is beginning to shift. Using words like naturally, obviously, clearly, frankly, undoubtedly, that what it does is it actually frames the rest of the sentence that the person begins to listen, the consumer begins to listen like, well, of course, this naturally we want to actually meet. The person goes, yeah, that one word creates meaning in time in terms of the awareness that the person has. Now, that's called an adverb presupposition. Try it out. Like just start your sentence off with naturally, supposedly, clearly, frankly, undoubtedly, and there's about 40 of them.
Yeah.
So that's one. Second one, this one's my favorite. Okay. It's called a awareness presupposition, right? NLP has a lot of presuppositions, and presuppositions are nothing more than a word that you use to create a meaning. If I say, hey, Darren, you're becoming aware that this market is beginning to actually become more competitive, correct? Right? Using this become aware, what happens is maybe Darren wasn't aware of it, right? But when I say you're becoming aware, it actually takes their mind and says, look at what I'm about to say. You're now going to actually become aware of this, right? You're becoming aware that this market is becoming more competitive. Hey, Darren, you're starting to recognize, that's another one. You're starting to recognize that because we've helped so many families like yourself, that we're probably one of the best choices for you to be able to buy a home, right?
Yeah.
So they may not have even noticed that, but I said, you're starting to recognize that because we've helped so many other families. And now they're looking at that, and I've directed their awareness to what it is I want them to think about or to be able to actually experience. So
100%, because you say that same thing when you're trying to sell your own value proposition. You can say that one way, but then if you add any one of these presuppositions, it adds extra power to it. So it's like, whoa, okay. Like you want that outcome, right? You were saying it plainly the other way. You add one of these two, and you're right. You're driving, planting the seed, framing it, right?
Framing it. Well, let me give you the example of the difference, right? Okay. If I don't use an awareness presupposition, remember the phrase is you're becoming aware that because we've helped so many families, we're most likely the best fit for you to be able to buy a home. Well, that's the elegant NLP way. If I go, we've helped a lot of families, that's why you should choose us to be able to help you buy a home. It's
right. Yeah.
like in your face, and it creates
that feels salesy, right? That's the one that you're like
feels salesy, right? And it's just like that angular type of thing. But I soften it. You're becoming aware that because we've helped all these families, right? We're most likely the best fit to help you buy a home. And it's just such an elegant manner to use language to be able to create the reality, right? So
I could see a use case for this when you're trying and working with your clientele that maybe are listed with you. And again, it takes a while sometimes for them to believe us in, price reductions, challenges, feedback. And as you paint the education to them, they still may not listen. You already said 6-7 times before they reframe themselves. So, don't be scared as an agent to say things more often, even to your own clients. But then again, with this, getting them, you've become aware likely the market has shifted and we're no longer achieving that dollar per square foot or whatever that might be. They start to say, oh yeah, I do get it that the price is overpriced, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a way to be able to bypass the natural resistance that people experience in these situations. There's a lot. I mean, Moyne's book is great on that. That's what I teach in that 12-week intensive class as well too. So, and like I've always found that like learning, it's really like learning any new language. You have to write sentences of phrases and dialogues. We did this with your team. Remember that?
Oh
like
yeah. I still
years
have
ago.
the Mike Ferry audio that you had sent me years ago from your
Yes.
past.
Oh my
And
God.
I remember going through this over and over again. And every time you do it, it's just another like, wow. And I do find myself still to this day, even though I haven't trained in it for half a decade, finding ways to position that way to some degree. I do hear myself saying it, and you look around the room and you're like, nobody knows this, right?
They have no idea. It's it's like being a magician, you know what I mean? And then when you find out the magician, what he's doing or she's doing, you're like, oh, I see it now. And then you become the magician yourself, right? Which is really
100%.
fun. And keep in mind, like the whole frame inside of this is we are here to connect and serve other people. And so can this be a manipulative dark force? Sure, if that's where your intent is. But if you really come at this and say, I'm going to use whatever tool I can because I believe that our team, myself, whatever, is the best agent to be able to help them. And they're making a huge mistake because they could leave money on the table, right? Or they could miss opportunities on the house of their dreams. Then I'm going to use this to be able to connect with them, create trust, respect, and rapport with them to be able to serve them. That's the key, man.
Yeah, man.
So,
We're supposed to believe we're the real estate advisor. We're supposed to believe we're guarding, protecting our spheres and our clients better than anybody else. And if you fully believe that, you're going down the light, not the dark, right?
right.
So
It's like it's the force. I mean, me, I'm a big Star Wars geek. So, like there's only one force. And then there's the dark side of the force and the light side of the force, but there's only one force. It's how you choose to use it.
This stuff has to be some of the most underutilized, under-executed strategies that could roll into an agent's role. Resources.
It's really
right?
sad too because it's really like I want to say it's a dying art, right? And the reason being is because there's fewer and fewer people that are actually teaching it out there. And, and it's not for everyone, like some people are just like, I need my next deal. Okay. Well, you don't need to worry about NLP. You need to worry about some fundamentals, right? So, yeah.
I mean, again, we go full circle around coaching. You and I talked about this offline agents sometimes just want to feel busy. And they're most of the time, not in the mega team world, but a lot of agents trying to get some real traction, break that first 6 figures, second 6 figures, do it again. The busy is in the wrong place, right? Right. Yeah. So the busy is not in the right stuff. So and they're focused mostly on marketing related stuff and not a lot of the skills, not a lot of the conversations, but they feel busy. Yeah. Right. And that I think is an absolute sin happening in our industry. There's so many ways for me to just feel like I did lots this week. And the whole social media push, personal brand stuff, it, to be honest, pisses me off a lot.
I'm so excited to hear you say that, man. You know what I mean? Because this is I'm not sure how many can see that.
Yeah, I got that. I can see it.
Yeah. Those are the 3 circles. I call this S4. This is one of the cornerstones of my coaching as well, too. There's 3 different circles in one circle. This is what I found are the fundamentals, the basis that all great real estate organizations have, whether it's an organization of 1 or an organization of 100.
Right.
They put a focus on skills, which is in one circle, right? And skills is nothing more than dialogues, conversations, and techniques that you use to create rapport and connection to move people forward and influence them to make intelligent choices. That's what a skill is. They have a focus on standards, right? And there's specific standards that they have in their business or for their team. And those standards, a standard is nothing more than rituals, routines, disciplines that you engage in that align with your goal and are non-negotiable. the best teams and the best agents. The reason that they got there is because they have fucking higher standards than everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Of themselves. And subsequently, eventually that goes over to the team, but the standards are with love for self and love for others. And then strategy is nothing more than systems, processes to be able to have the organization, the leads, be able to operate from a high level of efficiency, meaning you can get more done with a shorter amount of time, and effectiveness, meaning you produce the greatest results. When you're working on as a business owner, and if whether you're the owner of your own company, every day I'm going to work on my skills. Every day I'm going to run my business based upon certain standards, rituals, routines, disciplines. Like I'm going to prospect every single day, right? Or I'm going to go out, I'm going to knock on X number of doors, or I'm going to put, 2 posts on social media. Those are standards. All those are standards, right? And you operate on those standards, and then you're operating and you're running plays that work. You do these 3, I call it S4, because it's the 3 small S's that in this small center is the intersection. If you do all of this, that's the small intersection of success. I call it the big S. The 3
Makes
S's that
sense.
lead up to the big S: skills, standards, and strategies that give you success in the business, period. Now, is marketing in there? Marketing is a strategy, right?
Sure.
Marketing is a standard. I do this to my past clients 40 times a year, right? Okay. But, like if you're not working on your skills and you're not prospecting every single day, I promise you, like you will not have the breakthrough in your business that you want to have. You may have a short-term market-driven success, but it's not sustainable for a long period of time.
For sure.
Yeah.
There'll be people that will hear this, or they'll put themselves in a place to learn and educate, right? So for instance, with my brokerage meetings, I run a sales market update every first Tuesday of every month. And I take the big hairy bit of data, condense it down to the version that I'm going to share to the world. Then I share it to them with context. But you know that the agents in the room 12 months from now that have just listened again because they enjoy the content, but then never shared it forward, never got more confident to use it. And it's the gap, that execution gap, that it just, as a coach, and not a coach like you, but just trying like how to get them from giving them the world to get them to get out in the world. That shift is such a tricky thing. Any take, because I know any agent listening is like,
100%.
that's me about that thing, right?
Something I got from Gary Keller years ago. And I think that's one of the, I was talking to this other coach. We were at dinner on Wednesday night, and the conversation that we had, and I realized is, I mean, I look, I'm not sure if you can see this. I'll actually grab this. I keep this on my desk. I look at it every single day. That's the Godfather. That's freaking Mike Ferry, man. Like
There he is. Yeah.
That guy looks at me every day. I'm looking at him right now. And then I had Gary Keller, and then I got the chance to be able to align with Tom Ferry, and then I got the chance to align with John Cheplack, right? And from every single one of them, I just learned something. But from Keller, I learned start small to go big. Start small to go big. I think a lot of times we go to events, we hear these great webinars, these podcasts. We read a book and we get so overwhelmed with so many things that you need to do. Here's what I tell you. You don't need more information. I think it's great to hear information again, because we need to hear it 6 times, right? What you need to do is start small and small executable things. Like, here's what I would say to you guys as we wind down. What's the one thing you're going to execute on from this? Because otherwise, if all you did was get more information, it ain't going to change your business, and it's not going to change your life. But if you were to pause right now, which I'd encourage everyone to do, press pause and then write down my one executable item over the next 7 days from what Langille and Pipes were talking about is going to be this. That's what you need to do. Less information, more action, more executing on what you know you need to do. And if you have to start small, like I'm not prospecting coach, good. Start with a call, a conversation a day. Do that for 7 to 10 days. It's better than not. Hey, I'm horrible at video. I'm scared of video. I've never done it. Good. Shoot one and get it out and just start small to go big, and you build up that confidence that you need. So,
yeah. I mean, that is the case. It's just that, like, find that one friend you're willing to share the market info to.
Yeah.
Right. You're the one that's not getting, the one's your biggest cheerleader. And until you're comfortable, and then eventually you're spitting it out to cold people after you're just sold door knocking campaign. Right. So
I'll share something really funny about that. And then we can wind down and I go jam. Mike Ferry, when we would go to dinner, because I was married to Mike's daughter, right? And many people don't know that, but for years, Michelle and I were together for almost 13 years. we go to dinner with Mike, and he would just constantly be telling jokes to us. This joke and that joke and this joke and that joke and this joke and that joke. And like, okay, like, and it was great because some of the jokes were funny and some of them weren't, and some of the delivery was good and some of it wasn't. But what happened is then he'd have the superstar retreat, or he'd have his action workshop or one of the events. And all of a sudden, guess what I heard? He's telling the joke that he had been telling us at dinner or at lunch or when we were on the golf course. And all he was doing was, like a great comedian, practicing his freaking delivery. Right. Right. And so that when he stood on stage, he had it down. Well, that's what we need to be doing with everyone that we know. Like, share the data with everyone. Like, like, have conversations, try it out on your friends and whatever. They won't know. They'll appreciate it, because the minute that someone finds out you're in real estate, they want to go, what the hell's going on with the market? Practice your shit on that. Right.
Yeah.
And so that you begin to get comfortable. Mike did it for years, worked pretty well for him. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Well, Bill, I've got way more pages and over prepared once again. And of course, we got to be mindful of time and everybody. But again, we've just covered a lot. I love these chats with you because we can go so deep, because you've got such a depth of like experience to share. Where is the best place for people to just like find you and follow you and stay connected?
sure.
And
You can go to my website, coachpipes.com, right? Or you can actually follow me on Instagram at Coach Pipes, right? Either one of those two. I mean, and then Bill Pipes on Facebook. But I'm super active on Instagram. I love Instagram. I think it's a great platform to be able to actually be in communication with individuals. If you're on the website, right, be sure to get that free ultimate offer acceptance strategy, become part of our network, so that as things are evolving and changing, I'm always sending emails out to you guys, not spamming you and like bullshit. It's, here's something I think you need to know. That's my commitment, man. My goal.
dude, if you were spamming me, or anybody listening, if you were the one spamming me, I would be opening that email anyway. So spam away, because Bill's value is there.
Spam
Right?
away. Yeah. I want everyone just to hear that. I mean it. I think if you're in this industry, if you're in this business, you deserve to earn 7 figures. I would ask you to open up to, that's why you got in the business. And sure, we have limiting beliefs around it, but there's a pathway to success to be able to do that. And if you're going to play the game of real estate and the sacrifices and all the work that goes into it, why not play it for 7 figures? And oh darn, I failed and I got 800,000. And of course, money isn't like everything, but it's a measure of the people you contribute to. And I'll tell you what, when you earn that income, it gives you that discipline gives you choices. Those choices give you options. Those options give you freedom. Really, earning 7 figures in real estate is nothing more than you creating freedom in your life for your kids, yourself, and for the financial well-being and the support and assistance of your clients. So really let that resonate in your head as we end today, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to leave us. So, well, everybody, I am so excited you got to hear this conversation. We went down some paths and deeper and some super tactical ones. So if you missed them and you didn't take the 4 pages of notes like I did, please go back and do it. And I'm doing that while I'm actually doing this podcast. So there's no reason you guys can't be doing that. I'm so thankful for you, Bill. You made it awesome once again. And I just can't wait to connect in person, or next time we come across each other. Make sure you let me know about your next workshop series so I can point people to it. We'll link it
coming
in the
in
notes.
September. It's coming in September. We just don't have it hammered down. It's going to be my first all me, like, without it being aligned to another company. So I'm really excited, very proud, and going through all those wonderful experiences of being an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? That every one of you goes through. So Darren, thank you, man. I'm so proud of you. So grateful to call you friend, family, man. So you guys crush it. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been another Re-Education Experience podcast. Thanks for your time and attention, and we will catch you next time.